The Prepper Podcast, Episode 19.
We've got to know whether or not their president's a crook.
The American people would never vote for socialism. He said under the name of liberalism, the American people will adopt every fragment of the socialist program.
The Prepper Podcast is an up-to-date survival podcast based on military, wilderness, and modern-day survival and may be found at theprepperpodcast.com. I am Ken Jensen, the host of the show, and this is the podcast about everything survival. This is episode 19, and today I'm going to discuss the economy, the Fed, and taxes. I also have a call-in today about wood stoves. I think this is going to be a great show. It might run a little bit long because there's a lot of information to throw at you, but I think it's going to be a great show. These show notes for today's episode may be found at theprepperpodcast.com/ that's a / 019 theprepperpodcast.com / 019. I want you guys to remember that I have a book, The Honey and the Bee, about beekeeping that you can get for free if you sign up for my email subscription list. Also, the Prepper Podcast call-in line. That is 978-KNOWS-IT or 978-566-9748. I actually have a call today from Joe of Missouri about wood pellet stoves and wood stoves. So I'll get to that here in just a minute. And the winner. All right, winner, chicken dinner. The winner of the Colt Tactical Survival Knife from all the people that have subscribed to my mailing list was Greg from Tennessee. He actually even told me that I could say the city that he was from, but I thought in interest of his security and other securities, I'm not going to go down to the town in Tennessee that he lives in. I just want to say congratulations, Greg, and I hope that you enjoy that knife. It should be almost to your doorstep as we speak. All right, so now let's go ahead and get to the phone call for the day, okay? Remember, this phone call is from Joe of Missouri, and I'm going to go ahead and play it and let you guys listen to it, and then I will be back with my answer.
Hi, Ken. My name is Joe from Missouri. I've just started listening to your podcast, and so far you're doing a good job. Got a quick question for you. I have a 1,200 square foot open floor plan house and was curious what would be more efficient to heat it. Would it be a wood pellet stove or a regular wood stove? I like the idea of longer burn times with a wood pellet stove versus having to load a wood stove every few hours. And one final question, do you know of a wood pellet stove that you can cook on? Thanks, and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you for that phone call, Joe. I'm going to go ahead and give you my answer now. We're going to go ahead and talk about some of the pros and cons of wood stoves versus wood pellet stoves, because the answer for this is, dun, 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 it depends. All right. So wood stove, you can put pretty much anything that's flammable into a wood stove and it will burn. There are no moving parts, and you can cook on top of it if it's large enough. So you're going to just go ahead. You're going to get a wood stove that you can cook on, okay? Because you may as well just have multiple functions there. A pellet stove can produce heat very efficiently and very easily. The wood stove, you have to empty ashes. You have to feed it wood, like you said, every few hours or whatever, and it takes work to start the initial fire. But once the fire is there and once the embers are there, then the fire is good to go. Now, here's the issue with the wood pellet stove. It takes electricity to work. I've looked and looked and looked to try to find a wood pellet stove that doesn't take electricity to work, and technically you can make a wood pellet stove that will be, it's essentially just going to be a wood stove, so it's not really going to be a wood pellet stove. If you build one that doesn't take electricity, it's not going to be the same. The pellets cost a lot more than the wood does, and there are a lot of moving parts inside of and most wood pellet stoves that are going to be able to break down. Now, I just gave you some information on both of them, so you can make an informed choice, but let me tell you my opinion. My opinion is that you get a wood stove, and I'll tell you why. Because the fact of the matter is if we are survivalists or we are preppers and we are always thinking about redundancy and what if this goes down, what if that goes down, unless you have backup that you're going to use specifically for this wood pellet stove, you now have lost all of your heat. Now, I don't know what the draw is on a wood pellet stove, but I'm going to guess that it's a little bit larger than just a light bulb or something like that. So I would stay away from something that's going to require electricity so that you can use your wood heat. Wood pellets are a lot more expensive than buying a cord or a rick of wood. So you don't want to be purchasing a bunch of wood pellets, and you're going to purchase them by the ton. Now, if you're the type of person that's thinking about environmental this, environmental that, which, to be honest with you, the process of burning wood is actually a natural process, and it does not put anything in the environment that the environment cannot handle. This being said, it does cost more to ship all the wood pellets everywhere, and that is going to use up fuel. It's going to use up oil supplies and all this other stuff. So in order for you to get your wood pellets, and in order to get them to burn, you have to have some truck bring you a lot of wood pellets, and you're going to have to store them just like you would the wood, and you're going to have to bring in a big bundle of wood pellets, and you're going to have to feed this thing, be it a lot more efficiently. It has to go through a process to become a wood pellet, and it also has to be shipped. So if electricity goes away, you lose your wood pellet stove. If oil or anything like that goes away, you lose the ability to transport it. If something happens and the manufacturer of your wood pellets goes bankrupt, or the manufacturer of your wood pellets loses electricity or the ability to give you your wood pellets, once again, you lose your fuel. Now, here's the thing. If you live on land that has firewood, then you're going to go ahead and you're going to get the wood stove because you can chop your own firewood. Okay, you're going to want a nice, good hardwood forest or something like that connected to your property so that you can get the wood that you need. But plain and simple, before wood pellets came around, people knew how to chop firewood and people could buy cords of wood. Do not think that people aren't going to be selling wood in an economic downturn, because they're going to lose a lot of other job opportunities and they will be chopping firewood. That's going to happen. Now, the problem with that is we have the ability to deplete our forests more, but that's why we have to be smart about it. We have to replenish what we use. If we are going to use more than what nature can replenish by itself, we have to give it a kickstart and we have to replenish it. So it is best to get a wood stove for that reason. And I didn't mention the expense of buying the stove. The wood stove is going to cost you $600 to $800, all right? And the wood pellet stove that I could find, they're all around $2,000. So now it's cheaper to get a wood stove. And you can cook on a wood stove. I haven't found a wood pellet stove that you can cook on, to answer the other question. So go ahead, get a wood stove. Now, if you really want the best of both worlds, you want all that efficiency and all the clean burning and of the wood pellet stove, but you also want the ease of finding fuel for the wood stove and all that, then go ahead and get a rocket mass heater. Why wouldn't you get a rocket mass heater? It's high efficiency, it's clean burning. The mass that you heat up with the exhaust stays warm when the fire's out. You can run a rocket mass heater for a few hours, and it's going to stay warm in the room pretty much all night. All right, most of them can be built for less than the price of a wood stove. You just have to know how to build it. And if you're going to get a builder to make it for you, then you can assume I would assume that it's going to be probably double that of a wood stove. But come on, man, it's a rocket mass heater. That's not a bad price for something that's going to look good because you got a professional to build it for you, and it's very efficient. And you've got a built-in bench that you can sit on that's going to keep you warm, and it's going to keep the space warm even after the fire is out. It's a very efficient, very clean burning thing. So I would say get a rocket mass heater. There are a lot of people that figured out how to turn a rocket mass heater into a stove. So you can look at some plans for that as well, and then you have something else to cook on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause it and get a drink of water real quick, because the topic that I'm going to get into, if I get fired up, it's going to be a very interesting topic. I have not been fired up on this show very much, but this is a subject that really does that to me. So, you know what? For you guys, that might be a good thing. For me and my stress level, probably not so good. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it and get a drink of water. I'll be back, and then we'll start talking about money. All right? Hold on one second. And I am back. All right, first thing I'm going to talk about is money. Money. What is money? A lot of people have this notion of money as the dollar and all this other stuff. The dollar has some kind of value. The only value a dollar has is the value you place on it. Money itself is not a bill. It's not a coin. It's not anything like that. All it is a means of exchange for goods and services. So it's an IOU, essentially. I rewire your home, and you say, I owe you 37 units. And then I have these 37 IOUs. And then somebody else says, well, I can give you fish. And I say, I would like some fish. Here's 2 units of IOU from Bob for this fish. And then that guy, the fish guy, he has 2 IOU units from Bob. And he goes over to Bob and says, hey, Bob, what do you have? And Bob says, oh, I've got some pelts over here that I can sell you. Or let's say I've got a thick coat over here that costs 4 units of IOU. But you can't afford that. I have this thin jacket over here that costs 2 units of IOU. And the fish guy goes, well, I need a jacket. So here's the 2 units of Bob's IOU for this jacket. Now, I know this is oversimplified, but basically it just means that one person has promised another person an amount of product or service based on the product or service that they gave. So all this does is it supercharges the bartering system. The problem with the bartering system that has actually worked for quite some time is that it just goes a little too slow. Someone brings in something and they can't get paid for it because it is too difficult for people to carry the different items that they need to barter. So we used money. Well, we used money because it was a lot easier to carry and people can use it to redeem our products or services. The only thing that gives the money an actual value is what we agree upon. We have a common agreement that money has a worth, and that is what makes it worth something. Okay? That is it. All that makes money valuable is that the community believes that it is so. Don't misunderstand this. Money is not valuable because it's backed by a precious metal. Money is not valuable because your government states that it is so. Money has value because the community agrees, whether it's under government demand or not, the community and the economy agrees that that money has a intrinsic value. Okay, so money has been used in different forms throughout the years. First, we used the bartering method for goods and services. Then, people started using things like cattle and shells and up into gold and silver because they could be made into cups and they could be made into coins and everything else. And it was a precious metal. It was beautiful and it was easy to melt and shape and everything else. So they got really good at that. And then eventually we go into paper money that was backed by gold or silver. And beyond that is paper money that is not backed by anything. In some countries, they had paper money that was just fiat, 100% fiat. And what fiat currency is it is value because the government declares it so and the economy accepts that. That is it. The government does not back it with anything, including debt. Okay, we'll get there. The country just says this one widget is worth one widget, and everybody will do business based on that. So they do business based on the widget, and that is their currency. That is a 100% fiat currency, which our country does not have. And now they have digital currencies. All right, the digital currencies, even our dollar is actually kind of a digital currency now. If you want to really think about it, it's a digital currency. But we have things like Bitcoin and Litecoin and all this other stuff, which I'm going to work to get Bitcoin onto my websites. So if you guys enjoy one of my episodes, then you can go to my show notes and just donate me, 0.001 Bitcoin or something like that. Okay, I'm probably going to put a minimum on what you can donate, but it's only going to be like a $2 minimum or something. And, that's just something where you can say, hey, thanks for the show. Thanks for doing what you do. All right. I get calls, people telling me thanks, and I really, really appreciate those calls. Believe it or not, those calls are more valuable to me than money, and I really enjoy those calls. But, if you want to help support what I do here, then go ahead and donate some money over there at the show notes as soon as I can get that up on the website. It's not on the website now. That's just one of the plans that I have. All right, so most people think that our money is gold-backed, and it is not. It is debt-backed, and there are other countries that have pure fiat. So ours is debt-backed. Every dollar you spend is backed by somebody borrowing money. That is it. That is it. Somebody had to borrow money and get into debt for you to get any dollar. That's ridiculous. Okay, this is how we're going to jump off of actual dollars and money amounts and stuff like that. All right, I think you guys may have an idea of it. Well, you know what? We might get into Bitcoin on another show. Just know this. Bitcoin is pretty awesome. Litecoin is pretty awesome. They're both on the same model. Bitcoin came first, and it is essentially a digital gold standard, okay? And we'll leave it at that because we're going to go really long as it is. We're already to 19 minutes or so, and I'm going to go ahead and start talking about how the economy is run. All right, Joe, you go to First National Bank. Joe goes to First National Bank, and you borrow $100 from First National Bank. First National Bank, all they have to have is like $10 in someone's savings account, not their own money, $10 in someone else's savings account that they can say, okay, we have money in here that can back up to 10% of what we loaned out. Now they loan $100 to you for you to go and do whatever you're going to do with it and place it into circulation. But they didn't have that money. Well, how the crap did they get that money? Well, the Fed loans them money at the going rate from the Fed to the banks. That's why your rate goes up and down with that rate, even though there's a little bit of smoke and mirror in there as well. The Fed loans them money. What's the Fed? The Fed is the Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve Bank. And do not think that because it is called the Federal Reserve Bank that it is a government institution. It is a private bank that has a name that small private banks want to be a part of. If a small private bank does not want to be a part of the Federal Reserve System, they do not have to be, but they don't get guarantees from the Federal Reserve System that they will have money backing them and that they will get loans. So, the Fed is the Federal Reserve, which is a private banking institution. How does the Fed get their money? Member banks of the Fed, they are told that they are going to invest a certain amount of money for shares of the Federal Reserve. They are going to invest a certain amount of money into the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve does not have to use that money. The Federal Reserve, just like the bank, uses that money to say, we have the ability to loan you money. So Bank A puts money into the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve says, Bank A just put $100,000 in here, or let's keep it down on that low amount of dollars like I was doing earlier before I went off on a tangent. Bank A gives $100 into the Federal Reserve for membership. Then the Federal Reserve says, oh, I have $100 that I can loan out. I'm going to loan out $100 to Bank B. But Bank A gets to keep their interest in the Federal Reserve. Bam, we just created $100. Now that $100 is loaned to Bank B. Bank B is loaning that money to you. That is how that money is created every single time you take a loan. And that's not just mortgages or automobiles. That is credit cards and everything else. So every time you take debt, good on you. Every time you take debt, you boom our economy because you just created money out of thin air. And because you created money out of thin air, you just caused inflation down the road. Thank you very much, sir. The other way that the Fed gets money is they call up the Federal Mint, and it is a government organization. The Mint is a government organization that prints our coinage and our bills. And the Fed says, hey, Mint, Bank A wants to borrow $100, and we need to go ahead and give them that $100. So I'm going to have you print me another $100 so I can give it to them, okay? And the Mint goes, all right, I'll go ahead and I'll print some money for you so you can throw that into circulation. We got to keep the money flowing because if they don't keep the money flowing, the economy goes, okay? So the Mint prints this money. It doesn't have any backing. If you look on the dollar, it says Federal Reserve Note. It is a Federal Reserve Note. It is a IOU printed by the Mint for the Federal Reserve. So we are spending our tax dollars on the Mint to print money for a private bank to say that they owe us a certain amount of money that they don't have to back it. So that money can go into circulation. Bam! Money's created. How do you know? Or what do you know? So, anytime you borrow money, it's created. Anytime the Fed has the Mint print money, it's created. Every time money is put into the Fed shares from a member bank of the Fed system, money is created. We're not done. We're not done with this. All right, I'm going to come back to this here in just a second. because of what I was talking about, we're going to go ahead and transition back over to money for a second. I already told you that every dollar you borrow gets borrowed from the Fed, which is given to them by the mint. We spend our taxpayer dollars and we give it to the Fed so that we can borrow against it. That's stupid. This places more money on the market, and because the value of money is based truly on the amount of resources and services that we provide, it gives us inflation. As money is added to the market without anything backing it, all of our goods and services hasn't changed. Our goods, our services, our resources, which is our gross domestic product, it all remains constant. It doesn't change. It's relatively constant, and now we have more money on the market, so everything that we have has to cost more because there's more money out there, and the wealth of the country has to stay as constant as the GDP, gross domestic product. Money is worth less and less because there's more of it. So no matter how much we print, we can't have more money. We make the money worth less, so we don't have more. And the only thing that is making this not hyperinflate is the fact that you don't know it. You have no idea that this money has absolutely nothing behind it. Now, I'm sure that most of the listeners to this show probably know this, but I'm talking about in general. People don't know that money is not backed by gold. They don't know that fiat currency has more value than a debt-based currency. We're not done with the Fed. The mint is also printing money for the Fed because the government has an agreement with the Fed that the mint will give the Fed the money to distribute in the agreement that the Fed will purchase U.S. bonds. The Fed is tied to purchase U.S. bonds. What does that mean? The Fed loans money to the government. So just like the bank is loaning money to you, the Fed is loaning money to the government. But the difference is the government is printing the money that the Fed is using to loan it straight back to the government. Even if the government were printing this money and using it themselves, it would not be as bad as the fact that the Fed is loaning the money back to the government and the government has to pay interest on this. The government has to pay interest on their own freaking money that they just gave to the Fed. I'm going to blow a gasket. I'm seriously going to blow a gasket. Okay. Let's talk about the transparency of the Fed. Okay. We're going to talk about the U.S. monetary aggregates, which really, let's just think of it this way. We have a bunch of financial transactions up in the interwebs, up in the space, up in the internet, and there's even dollar-to-dollar exchange. And we try to track that stuff. And they have numbers M0 through M4, okay? There are some others like M4 minus or M3 minus and stuff like that, but we're not going to get into that. I'm going to try to make it as basic as possible. So we're just going to stay M0 through M4. The U.S. Federal Bank, they have a report that goes out through the board, which is government appointed. Okay, they have a board, essentially a board of directors, similar to that of a company. And that board of directors is made of U.S. appointed officials. So there's no corruption there. If the Fed can buy a U.S. government official, we know that U.S. government officials can't be bought, don't we? Now, you can't buy a U.S. government official. You can't get them to do things for cigarettes, and you can't get them to throw an earmark on something for freaking turtles in California. You can't do that, can you? You can't get them to throw research money on something for some earthworms. You can't get them to do that, can you? If you believe that you can't do that, I'm going to go ahead and ask you why you believe that. Because it's happening right under your noses. So, let's go back into the transparency. M0. These are all financial transactions that are tracked by the Fed, and they are reports given to the government through the board. M0 is cash and coins. It's Federal Reserve notes, United States notes, and coins. That's it. That's what M0 is. So that's an indicator of what we got. You know, that's the indicator of person-to-person transaction, what's going where. You got M1. M1 is M0 plus deposits. That's bank deposits and stuff. So on-demand deposits, traveler's checks, and other deposits like that. So it's really just bank deposits, okay? M2 is M1, which remember, M1 is M0. So this is all compounding, right? So M2 is M1 plus savings. Savings accounts, money market accounts, money market mutual funds, CDs under $100,000. That's M2. So let's recap M0 and M1 and M2 all together. Cash, coins, savings, CDs under $1,000, deposits. Okay, I don't think I said deposits already. So cash, coins, deposits, and savings. That's M2. M3. This is M2 plus all other CDs, like large deposits, institutional money market mutual funds, deposits of Eurodollars. Okay, so now we're getting into things across seas, and repurchase agreements. Once again, big institutional stuff. M4 is M3 plus commercial paper plus treasury bills. Okay, so take M3, add commercial paper and treasury bills, and you have M4. I know this part's boring, but stay with me here. So we're tracking cash, coins, deposits, savings, large CDs and deposits, things overseas, commercial paper, and treasury bills. Okay, so the monetary aggregate that they put in the report doesn't even include the M4 because it's not a good indicator. Well, number one, I want to know what the crap is in M4. I want to know that. I want that on the report. People want that on the report. But what are they doing? They're not doing that. In 2006, they stopped publishing the M3 components, except for the institutional money market funds, the money market mutual funds. In 2006, they stopped publishing the Eurodollar exchange. That's the exchange on the open global market, repurchase agreements, and large time deposits. So what all the big people are doing and all the stuff that's being done on the open global market, they're not publishing that anymore. I wonder why they're not publishing that anymore. This is the M3 stuff. They still have the M1, the M2 stuff on the report. But in 2006, they got rid of the M3 stuff. Why did they get rid of the M3 stuff? I don't know. Maybe because 2 years later, They had a freaking huge bailout that I know was already in the plans, or at least I assume is already in the plans, because it's 2 years after they stopped publishing the M3 components, and that bailout would have been an M3 statistic. So for us to actually look at our gross domestic product and stuff like that, the money aggregates got rid of our huge indicator of what the government and what the Fed is actually doing. And that's not to mention that the fact that the M4 was never there. Okay? I want all that back. But the gross domestic product, let's talk a little bit about that. The gross domestic product, talking about our services, our goods, our resources and stuff. I just want you to know that here recently, the gross domestic product is now including unfunded liabilities. Unfunded liabilities. What does that mean? That means that the state owes somebody some money, let's say a government employee. The state owes them. They just started working for the state, okay? They just started their job, and they gone like 6 months or whatever, and now they have a retirement that they're in. And the government promises a retirement for this employee, assuming that they finished their employment. Well, instead of waiting for this employee to retire and then add it to our money exchanges, it's getting added on the front end. Unfunded liabilities. They don't even have this money. They don't have this money. They're promising it to an employee that may or may not even work there, but it's going into our financial transactions so that you think that we have better financial transactions, so that you think that our economy's booming, so that you think everything is hunky-dory, everything is okay, everything's fine. Let's just go and purchase some more stuff. Let's just go ahead. Let's go get a bank loan for our house. Let's go get a bank loan for our car. Because when we flood the money into the market, everything's good. We keep flooding money, everything's great. Okay, let's back up now. Every dollar spent by the government is created by the Mint through the Fed, and another debt-backed dollar is on the market. Now the government has to pay the Fed interest, all right? I think I told you earlier I was going to come back to this. Now the government has to pay the Fed interest on the debt, just like we would have to. You know, what came into effect the exact same time or the same time period as the Fed, as the transactions in the Fed, what bill was signed into? The IRS. Yeah, the IRS. Sorry, guys, I paused it for a second there because I thought my wife was knocking on the door, but apparently I'm hearing things. It's okay. All right, so they signed the IRS into a bill the same time period in which the Fed transactions were signed in. Because they know that they got to pay the Fed interest on all the debt that they took. They have the IRS. They're going to sell more bonds to us and more bonds to the Fed to pay the Fed the interest that they owe the Fed. And when you buy a bond, all you're doing is buying an empty promise that they're going to pay you back the money with interest, when all they're doing is using your money to pay the Fed interest. That's what we're talking about with all of this debt. All of the debt in the world, or in our country, is a huge Ponzi scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme, and it's going to come to head just like a Ponzi scheme. Okay? They have to pay the Fed with more debt. They sell more bonds to the Fed to pay the Fed. They sell more bonds to you to pay the Fed and to pay you back. So all they got to do is keep printing bonds and handing those bond papers over, and then they get more money. Right? So they're just taking out more loans from the Fed so they can pay them back. That's like me going to a loan shark. Hey, let me borrow $100,000. The loan shark says, hey, next week, if you don't pay me my $100,000, I'm going to break your legs. And I say, okay. Next week, I come up to the loan shark. I say, hey, let me borrow $200,000. And the loan shark says, all right, here's $200,000. I pay him $150,000 back because I just borrowed that $100,000 with like a 50% interest. And then that $200, I have to pay that back with interest. So now I owe him $300. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a loan out for $300. I'm actually going to take a loan out for $350,000. And I'm going to spend $50 of it and have fun while I pay the loan shark back to $250. All the while, I'm waiting for him to break my legs. And the higher this debt gets, it goes from breaking my legs to breaking my back to killing me because it's a lot of money. That loan shark doesn't give a crap about you. The Fed doesn't give a crap about the government, and they don't give a crap about you. They are rolling in the dough, and they are too big to fail. So when it all comes crashing down, they've already got their exit plans. You control the money, and you control the food, and it doesn't matter who makes the laws. So the government is taxing us to pay their debt interest. All right, more taxes equals we already talked about the fact that money's pretty much going down the tube. It's not worth hardly anything, right? Money is not worth jack, and it's going down every single time somebody takes out a loan. Inflation goes up, the value of money goes down, and the government has to tax us to pay the debt, the interest on their debt. When money's worth less, they have to tax us more. So now we get more taxes when money's worth less and we're making the same amount. So we have to work harder to earn the same amount even though our money is worth less and we're getting more taking away in taxes. So it's a compounding problem here. The money we're making is worth less. We're working ourselves to the bones. And not only that, but now they're going to take more of it from us. Taking more from us when we have less. We're also taxed on the welfare. Oh, yeah, that's right. Unemployment and welfare and stuff like that. You know what? I have no problem with helping somebody who lost their job, helping them for 6 months to a year to find a job. That's different. But welfare? We're just going to pay for a bunch of people to be given handouts from the system so that they become people that can't work for themselves? You know what? The only welfare that I truly believe in is welfare for my family. And that means me working to provide a life for my family. That is the only welfare I believe in. And it's because I care about them and I freely do it for them. No one's forcing me to do it. That's the big difference. With force at a point of a gun, we are paying taxes for people to mooch off the system. With force at a point of a gun, we're paying more taxes so the government can pay their debt. So that they can pay their debt and they can take out more debt so that they have a larger interest that they have to pay back and they have to tax us more. Now, we already know that they're taxing us more, and we know that taxes are going up and up and up and up, and it doesn't matter if they tell us that taxes are going to go down. They're going to go up, and we know that. But in order to keep us in line, they have to keep us in line or else. So they have to keep us in line. So what are they going to do? They're going to try to find sneaky ways to get our money instead of overt taxing. Instead of just taxing us, they're going to figure out ways of making us think that they don't have the money that they have. My 401k at work doesn't have a cash option. When things get hairy and I want to take money out of stocks and bonds and stocks and mutual funds and stuff, they have a bond option. A bond option. Essentially like cash, right? Right. It's just like cash. I mean, cash is pretty much a debt backed anyways, right? So they do bonds. But the difference is cash is past debt. Cash is historical debt. This bond is new debt. So you can take this money and you can put it into a bond so that it's all safe when the market's fluctuating. And that bond can be used by the government so the government can pay off their debts from the other bondholders. This is wonderful. Not only that, but they're going to give you options for your 401k. They're going to give you options for your 401k that they're going to get their hands on your money more. In the interest of time, I'm not going to talk about that because I still got to get to my RA. My RA. So let's take an IRA and let's go publicly on TV and let's say, hey, it's not the IRA, it's my RA. By throwing a my in there, it's cool. It's yours. It's your RA. It's my RA. Let's go ahead and tell everybody, hey, we got this wonderful program. You put it in a my RA. What's a my RA? It goes into a bunch of bonds with the promise that they can roll it over into a Roth IRA and not be taxed. But the fact of the matter is they're getting their money on the front end instead of the back end. You throw it into a my RA, they're getting their money. They're getting their bonds. And that's what they need is bonds. So my RA is just a creative, incentivized way for them to borrow more money from you so that they can pay the Fed the money that they owe them in the first place, so that they can pay Joe Blow down the street the money that they owe him in the first place because he just cashed in his bonds. And now his $100 bond that he just cashed in is $120. Where does that other $20 come from? It comes from your bond. Once again, like I said, a huge freaking Ponzi scheme. And all the while, none of this stuff is showing up on the monetary aggregate trends because they stopped giving us reports on the Eurodollar deposits, the repurchase agreements, and the large time deposits. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What we need to do is we live in this country, so we're going to have to use the system. We are going to have to keep an emergency savings. I believe in that. I believe that we should keep, now Dave Ramsey used to teach 1,000. I think now it needs to be a little more. But your first emergency fund needs to be a couple $1,000s. Then you need to get rid of your freaking debt. Get rid of your debt. Get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. The more that you hold debt, the more you're a slave to exactly what I'm ranting about. Get rid of your debt. Okay? You need an emergency savings in case something happens on the short end. You need to get rid of your debt in case something happens on the midterm. You need to put your money into other avenues like building a business, precious metals, and, dare I say it, Bitcoin. I do believe in Bitcoin. Let me tell you something that just recently happened. And they're going to make a huge deal about this because the government cannot stand it. They can't do anything about us using Bitcoin. And they don't like that. They and the Fed don't control the money anymore because Bitcoin takes almost no money for each transaction. And there's a blockchain of a ton of computers that are all checking and balancing each other and finding discrepancies. They're finding discrepancies on the blockchain and fixing them. So what happened recently? One of the black market websites just said that somebody hacked into their system and stole, and I don't remember exactly how much it was. I think it was probably about $2.7 million. $2.7 million. And that's on the website Silk Road. All right. The how can Bitcoin be stolen? It's a computer program, right? Yeah. So they can hack into through a back door. They can get the Bitcoin out. But here's the thing. Once that Bitcoin comes back into the blockchain, they can steal that Bitcoin, but how are they going to scrub it so that the blockchain doesn't know it exists? They know it exists. It's got a huge long code attached to it. The blockchain knows it's there. The blockchain knows that it was taken off of the system, and when it comes back onto the system, the blockchain can tell you that that Bitcoin belonged to these people, that that Bitcoin was in this location, and it fixes it. It takes a majority of all the blockchain to agree that this Bitcoin was not stolen before the blockchain can correct it. And I don't think a hacker, no matter how many resources they may have, no hacker is going to be able to say that this money is theirs because the blockchain will correct it. Or all of the servers on the blockchain will correct it. How about that? So Bitcoin, even though somebody stole it, when it comes back, it can still tell the blockchain, or it can still tell the blockchain that it is yours. And you want it safe? There's a thing called a Bitcoin paper wallet that pulls the Bitcoin off of the blockchain temporarily, leaves it in an assigned number, and then you've got a 32 pin that you have to remember to get into your paper wallet and to touch those Bitcoins and to put them back on the market. It all acts instantaneously, okay? It's all instantaneous. So, you just put Bitcoin into your wallet, and the blockchain does the rest. It assigns it an escape and stuff like that, and then whenever you decide to use the money in your paper wallet, which is essentially this, it is even though paper wallets are online, it is an offline wallet that keeps it off the blockchain so it can't just be stolen. But because you have the PIN and everything else, and it was all taken out properly, when it comes back onto the blockchain, it is exactly where it was taken from, and the blockchain can address this. I didn't even know I was going to get into Bitcoin, guys. But here's the thing. Gold can be stolen. I mean, I could be somebody with $100,000 worth of gold in my vault here, and somebody could rip it out of the wall and take it. And they could take it wherever they need to so that they can break open the vault, and now they have all this money in gold. The problem is when that gold gets spent, I can't get it back because I don't have it signed. Bitcoin is like a marked bill. Every single Bitcoin, every part of a Bitcoin is like a marked dollar bill. When it is spent, everybody knows that it was this person's, not that person. The blockchain knows and corrects all this. Okay, so how is the hacker going to use the Bitcoin? If you actually know more about Bitcoin than I do, which I do not claim to be an expert about Bitcoin, I'm someone who's looked into it because I'm a libertarian and I believe in free exchange. And Bitcoin provides a monetary means of free exchange. I've looked into it. If you know more about it and you want to be on the show, just give me a shout. Email me, Ken at theprepperpodcast.com. Go to my website where it says guests. I have a tab on my websites that says guests. You fill out some information to tell me what you want to talk about, and we set up a time so that we can talk. It's that simple. And we'll use Skype because Skype is awesome and it has really great sound quality. So go ahead, get in contact with me, and I'd be happy to have you guys on here so that we can do a show about Bitcoin. That would be awesome. So please, somebody who knows a lot about Bitcoin, go ahead and become a guest on my show, because I'm really looking for one of you guys. I don't want to be an expert on everything. I want to bring in experts that know everything and talk to them in my shows. But I will continue to teach people what I know. So here's the deal. Our economy sucks. It's going to suck more in the future. And it's going to even suck further after that. It's going to be more sucky. And Bitcoin and gold. Gold is an old standard. Bitcoin a new standard. And both are ways of protecting your money outside of the normal dollar economy. Outside of the banks. That's who's really mad about it, is the banks. But Bitcoin, what it has, the advantage of gold over Bitcoin is the fact that gold can't be hacked, but it can be stolen. But it can be hidden, which I think now they've kind of done that. They've hidden Bitcoin in, paper wallets. But Bitcoin's advantage over gold is that it's freely transferable across the globe. It is a global economy. It is a global monetary value. It is a global money. And I know a lot of preppers and survivalists are all about, no, global money, New World Order. Well, here's the thing. The difference is that this is a global economy that we, the people, the libertarians, the people that believe in freedom, are setting up. Not the governments. The governments have already tried. That's why the dollar is part of the global market. The reason why you and I do so well is because we own essentially IMF Global. International Monetary Fund, we own that essentially because everybody who wants to do business there has to convert their money into a dollar, and every time they convert their money into a dollar, we pull a charge. So we're pulling their money every time they do a transaction with someone else. If China does a transaction with Europe and they want to do it through IMF Global, they have to both transfer their stuff into a dollar and do business and transfer it back. So we're getting 2 to 4 transaction fees off of one transaction. That's why you and I live such cush lives. I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping things up because we're already going on to about an hour now, and I try not to make these things too long for you guys. But I want you to know diversification, the one that the financial liars tell you about, diversification, it actually does have some sense to it. You need to diversify a little bit of your wealth. I'm not saying pull everything out of the dollar, because if you do that, you're stupid. Because that is the way that we exchange stuff here in the United States. But you need to protect your wealth. You need to insure your wealth by pulling money out of the dollar, putting it into gold. And you know what? If you want to toy around with it, go ahead and pull a little bit out and put it in Bitcoin. That's why I'm going to put it on the website. I'm not going to sit here and try to get this supercomputer where I can mine Bitcoin. I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is I'm going to allow people to place transactions on my website through Bitcoin. And I think that is awesome. Matter of fact, I'm going to set up a donation for Bitcoin on my website before I even set up a donation on PayPal. Because Bitcoin, the transaction fees are so much lower. They're a lot lower. I mean, I don't remember the exact amounts, but Bitcoin has a transaction fee of less than 1%. Okay? Whereas PayPal has a 30-cent flat fee plus a percentage of your transactions in their fee. So you could not donate me 30 cents via PayPal because I would pay more money. As a matter of fact, at like $1, I'd probably end up paying more money than what it's even worth to try to do the transactions. So I'm not going to do that. You couldn't donate me 30 cents. You couldn't donate me $1. But on Bitcoin, you could donate me like 2 or 3 cents. And it would still be a worthwhile transaction because the transaction fees are so much lower. And then we know that Visa and American Express and all those, they have higher transactions than that. That's why I want to start using Bitcoin. And it's not that I want to use it as my main monetary source. I want to start using it for people who want to use it. I'm just going to open up and use the dollar, use gold. If somebody wants to use gold, I'm fine with that. Or use Bitcoin. I'm just opening up my transaction, the communities that I can do transactions with. That's it. That's all I'm doing. And I'm not going to hold all my wealth in Bitcoin or gold, but I'm going to hold some of it. I mean, okay, everybody's worried about if Bitcoin fails. Well, what if Bitcoin fails? Well, that's why I'm not holding it all in Bitcoin. What if the gold standard doesn't work when the crap hits the fan? Yeah, when it hits the fan, the gold standard may not work. It usually does, but it may not. Food's what's going to talk, really. So if you want to save up money, save up food. Save up non-perishable stuff. But we already do that because we prepare, right? We are saving that stuff up because we prepare. So this is just prepper diversification. Think of it that way. I hope I gave you guys a lot to think about. I hope that I answered your question about wood stoves versus wood pellet stoves. And maybe I changed your mind and told you that you should use a rocket mass heater, and now you're going to think about that. But getting a professional to build a rocket mass heater is going to be cheaper than buying a wood pellet stove. Think about it that way. I really do hope that you guys take everything that I said into consideration. And I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And I don't know if I will be able to get it on my website before the show airs. But if this show airs and you guys want to donate to me through Bitcoin, I will try to get it on my website before this show airs. You don't have to donate. I'm not asking people to donate, but if you decide that you want to, go right ahead. I'll have it on there. I enjoy you guys, and I want you to have a great week. This is Ken, signing out. Goodbye.